Find an equation of the hyperbola that has foci 0, plus or minus 10 and asymptotes y equals plus or minus 4/3 x. Because the foci are on the y-axis, we know that this is going to be a hyperbola that's opening vertically, and so its equation will take the form y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared equals 1. Now we're not given the vertices like the last problems, so we don't know the value of a yet. We are given the foci are 0, plus or minus 10, so that tells us the value of c equals 10. However, the relationship between a, b, and c is c squared equals a squared plus b squared, and we only have one of the variables, so figuring out the other two is going to require a little bit more information. Luckily, we know something about the asymptotes. The equations are y equals plus or minus 4/3 x, and when we're dealing with a hyperbola that's opening vertically, we know that the asymptotes are y equals plus or minus a over b times x. So we don't know that a is 4 and b is 3, but we do know that the ratio 4/3 is equal to a over b. And we can actually use this to try and figure out what a and b are going to be. First of all, if we cross multiply, we get 3a equals 4b. And what we can do is we can write a in terms of b or b in terms of a, and then we can substitute it in here, and then we can solve for one of the unknown variables. So I'm going to get a alone by dividing both sides by 3. I'm going to write a equals 4/3 b. And then I'm going to substitute that into this equation along with c equals 10. So c squared is 10 squared, which is 100. And then this gives us 4/3 b quantity squared plus b squared. Now, if we square everything in the parentheses, that's going to give us 16/9 b squared, and then plus another b squared. And so what we're going to do is we're going to combine like terms. B squared is the same as 9/9 b squared. We'll get a common denominator. And when we add those together, we get 25/9 times b squared equals 100. So to get b alone, we can make things easier. We can get rid of that fraction. We can multiply both sides by 9. That gives us 900 equals 25b squared. And then to get b squared alone, we can divide both sides by 25. And that gives us 36 equals b squared, which tells us that b is equal to 6. Now we know a is equal to 4/3 times b, so that's going to be 4/3 times 6, which ends up becoming 8. And so a is 8 and b is 6. So that means our equation is going to be y squared over 8 squared, which is 64, minus x squared over 6 squared, which is 36, equals 1. We had to use a little bit more creativity here because we weren't given the same information that we were given before. We were given the asymptotes here, which were a little bit harder to work with, but we were able to use them to figure out the values of a and b, and eventually figure out the equation of the hyperbola. We're not going to do a lot of more complicated examples like these, but I did want to show one to show you that sometimes we're given different information, and it might not be quite as easy to work with, but oftentimes if we're creative enough, we can figure out what we need to figure out.